because she is out learning more about networking and co-working around the country. And we're really lucky today to have Bob Linz here as our speaker. And I want to tell you, if you don't know about Bob, though anyone who's on Bainbridge knows about Bob, Bob Linz serves others in a number of professional roles. He's spent over 40 years as a real estate investment broker. He works as a nonprofit board executive, has been on 6 island nonprofit boards since 1986, is now the chairman of the Bainbridge Island Youth Services Board. He made over 4,000 thank you calls to donors while serving as the executive director of One Call for All on the island for 5 years, a nonprofit that raised over $4 million during his tenure there. Of most importance to us, he is a seasoned professional speaker and has met the majority of his clients through presentations like this one today. His presentation today is entitled, Using Professional Speaking Skills to Increase Business, Create New Opportunities, and Be Authentically in Service to Others. Without further ado, Bob Linz.
Come on in, have a seat. Or not?
I'm kind of hovering to get out.
Okay. A week ago Monday, I'm seated in a room in Eugene, Oregon. Long conference table. 10 people at the table are related by blood. The CPA at the other end and I are not related by blood. And in my right hand, right here, is 89-year-old Bill. I've known Bill since 1978. 89-year-old Bill is reminiscing after lunch and trying to remember who it was that introduced him and I in 1978. And I can remember the gentleman's face, and Bill can remember where he worked, but neither one of us can remember his name. The reason this story is important is because I've been in business with Bill and his family of 10, plus another 11 directly related family members since 1978, helping them with their real estate investments, and I met him in a setting just like this. I was teaching a class at the Valley River Inn in Eugene. 1 night a week, 3 hours, 8 weeks. I think we charged $125 for 8 weeks. What's that called? That's just stupid. I was giving it away. And this gentleman, whose name we can't remember, took the class. Quietest guy in the room for the entire 8 weeks. Didn't say a word. Came up to me the last night and said, you know, I don't think I'll ever do this real estate investing thing. I just don't think I'll ever have enough money. I love what you had to say. There's 2 guys that I have coffee and donuts with every morning out at the mill. And they're just the nicest guys. They own the mill, 2nd or 3rd generation. And they own a lot of real estate, and they don't quite know why they've got it. So they sit around commiserating with all of us who only own a home or a mobile home, bitching about their real estate. Do you think they'd benefit if they took your workshop? And I said, I haven't got a clue. Would you just tell them about it, invite them, and we'll see if they come? He said, sure. I forgot it. A month or 2 later, I started another series of these presentations, and Bill and Al show up. And Bill and Al, at the time, if you do the math, would have been in their 50s. And they sat through 8 weeks of listening to me pontificate like I'm doing today. And at the end of the 8 weeks, I knew I could never call them. Because one of the things I want to share with you today is in a presentation like this, where you're meeting new clients, you're not selling. You're educating. It might be a little bit of inspiration unintentionally, but you're basically educating the audience. Much like today. I have nothing to sell you. Some of you paid to come in the door. It's good for your audience to always have a little skin in the game. Why is that? Keeps our attention. Since I met with Bill and Al in that same workshop setting, I've also had, in that same setting, both of Al's children, both of their adult spouses, 3 of their, on that one side of the family, 3 of the grandkids, and on Bill's side, both his daughter, both his sons, all the wives, the husband, and all the kids. So how are we doing? In a presentation setting, I've met all 21 members of the client family that I've worked for since 1978. Here's the point of today's speech. You and I have a product, a service, an idea that we want to sell other people. What's the most effective way to build rapport with other people in a neutral setting where they're not being sold anything? And Sid used to do etched glass and would show up at the Saturday market, and I loved his glass. And before that, you were doing something else when I first met you. And right now, he's got a business where he goes into your home and he videotapes all your possessions, so heaven forbid you ever have a fire or an earthquake. You've got a CD on permanent file probably with you and then in their bank vault of all your belongings. So you can go to the insurance company and say, here, I don't want to talk about it. Here's everything you need. So Sid, my remarks today are directed at your new business.
Great.
Is that fair? Okay. I need a subject.
Perfect getting.
There you go. So Sid has several options in his life about how to promote his material. He can cold call. What does that mean? It means he picks up the phone, calls an individual he's never met, tries to get their attention, and do what? Sell them his product. What's the failure rate or success rate with cold calling? Well, it's about 3% response. So you offend 97 people to have an experience with 3 people saying, I'll talk to you. When I called those 4,000 people at one call, people say, boy, that's an intimidating amount of phone calls. It really wasn't. Because I was calling 4,000 people to say, thank you so much for giving money to our charity. Welcome. Thank you so much for giving money to One Call for All. We feel so good about you sending us a check. And I talked probably 60% of the callers on the other end were senior citizen, master citizens, females. And they would invariably say, oh, don't thank me. Thank you. You guys do such great work. One Call's wonderful. So it was an easy call to make. Cold call, said, don't do it. I think the most effective thing to do is what we're doing here today. He could invite people he's never met through an ad, a brochure, we'll talk about how to promote it, to an event like this. Come on in, folks, good seats. And invite people in and talk about his product to educate them, but not to sell them. What's the difference between selling and educating? When I'm selling, you feel like I'm coming at you kind of like this, right? When I'm educating, hopefully you're relaxed. How are you? Yes, so I don't spit. Sit as close as you are. When I'm educating, I'm having a different experience as the audience than when somebody's helping me learn something. So I think the single most effective thing Sid can do is invite other warm bodies, human beings, into a room like this, where he trots out and talks about his product, he educates them, he never sells. Have any of you ever used a presentation or a workshop to sell a product? Are the only? Oh, good. We've got some people that know. Okay. So I brought this notebook today with my notes in it. But I've given this speech 4 or 5 times in my life, and I've given a couple thousand presentations. So why did I bring the book?
By yourself?
Nope. I brought it for you. I brought it so you'd know it's okay as a presenter to not have all your material memorized and to be able to look in a book like a normal human being with gigantic print and see where you are. So one of the challenges today with this topic, Leslie said, give them some hints. Give them something they can walk out of the room with. So here's the first tip. You can do what I'm doing today. How do I know? Millions of people have done what I'm doing today. Stood in front of an audience and presented materials or information that the other people could think about and make a decision on at some other time. So the second rule of presentation when you've got a product to sell is you want the people in the room to have a little skin in the game. What does that mean?
Partake.
Say again?
Partake in
You want them to participate like you just did, but what else do I mean by skin in the game? Yes, what else?
Okay.
It'd be nice if you paid something coming in the door. Why? I'm invested at a real level. So it's okay that you do a workshop where they didn't pay, but you need to do something so that when the person leaves the room, they feel in balance with you. Because we all got this thing called an ego, and we don't want to be one down to other people. Is that true for you? Feel that way? So if you got $5, $10, $15, $125 for my 8-week class, it doesn't matter, just something in the game so that they feel complete when they leave and they don't feel like they owe you anything. So back to Bill and Al. Bill and Al and their family owned probably $20 million worth of real estate when I met them. I'm a real estate investment broker. I make my living buying and selling real estate for investors. But they just spent 8 weeks and 24 hours with me in an educational mode. So if I picked up the phone and called them, who am I now? Now I'm the salesman. Now I'm the salesman. So I tease when I'm doing trainings. Who's making the phone ring? Is the customer calling you seeking information? Or are you calling the customer hoping to elicit them to engage with you so that they will ultimately buy your product? And we thought of promoting this today the way that the real estate seminars are promoted, where it's a $1,200 value, but the first 3,000 people that sign up get to come for free. What's that called? It's called lying, basically. But what am I trying to do? I'm trying to make you think you've got skin in the game when in fact what? I'm the only one with skin in the game. And what else have I got? I got a back room full of stuff I want you to buy. Thank you. Okay. So the first rule is skin in the game. Second rule is educate, don't sell. Third rule is make sure that the audience is there by choice and make sure they leave clean, in balance with you. I've got every single thing I'm going to say written down and typed, and I'm going to hand it to you before you leave. Is that fair? So you're welcome to write notes, and you don't have to.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so then you might be sitting there thinking, well, this is all great, but what if the thought of standing up in front of this big an audience and speaking makes me want to throw up and run to the bathroom? Got anybody like that in the room? Okay, okay. When I said millions of people have done this, I wasn't kidding. I don't imagine that there's a single one of those people that didn't have that experience the first dozen times that they did something like this, where their knees were knocking and they were sweating, and if the world would just have an earthquake right now, it'd be great because I'd be out of here. I started that way. I don't think you can start in this kind of a setting up front without being a little bit nervous. I want to brag about some people in the room. I'm teaching a little class on public speaking, and Wendy and Suzanne and Ricky all supported me and came in today. Thank you, ladies. And we talk about being calm up here, being poised up here. So my comfort level determines the comfort level of everybody in the room. If I'm nervous, what are you going to be? They're going to be nervous. And the truth about audience is they don't have your material. I didn't give you my material. So you don't know how I'm doing up here. True? You might take my notes home and go, you know, he forgot to mention that. It's possible. It's possible. But if I give you the material, what's going on? What are you doing?
You're glancing at it.
Now I'm looking at the material and I'm not...
Comparing your notes.
Right, and I'm not listening to
What you say.
the speaker. Thank you. I didn't hire these two, but aren't they perfect? So the notion is, the idea is, I don't want to tell you what I'm going to tell you in writing until I've told you, and then you can go home with it. The reason so many books and trash is sold at the back of a room when a speaker's speaking is because if you really like the speaker and you're connected to him or her, you want to take a little piece of them home. Now the speaker's not going to say, I want you to buy my book at the back of the room so you can take a little piece of me home, because that would sound what? That's your prompt.
There's your sales.
There's the sales pitch again. Exactly. But they might casually mention there's something at the back of the room you can take home. What percentage of that literature that goes home gets read? If at all. If at all. And the biggest ripoff at the back of the room will always be the CD. The little CD they made. They cost 8 cents to produce in volume. They sell them for $150 at the back of the room. You can go on YouTube with the same speaker and get it for free. Welcome. Glad you made it. We would have you introduce yourself to everybody in the room, but that would be so embarrassing.
We all know.
And we all know who you are. I'm the only one that doesn't know her. Next point. In order to be really effective up here, I should do what I'm doing, which is have a conversation with you. The most effective public speaker has a conversation with the audience. The difference is the audience is having the conversation in their head, and the speaker's having the conversation out loud. But at least with you two and a couple others, I'm also having a conversation this way. And that's okay because it engages your brain. And I want you thinking during the presentation. Why?
You're partaking.
I'm partaking. I'm participating. Notice, just glance around the room real quick and tell me if you see anybody sleeping. So the next point is, it's my energy. Oh, thanks a lot. This is my mom, incidentally. No, I made that up.
Ooh.
That's a reverse compliment, I think. You want to kick right here? Go ahead, huh? We're having a conversation. Conversation is how we communicate with each other. It's what we do. Women do it more effectively and more often than men. Why? Because men are trained to keep their mouths shut. Women are said, oh, just go off in the corner and talk with your girlfriend. It's bull. But we do it, don't we? So having a conversation means engaging you in thought. You'll notice I'm looking at you, so I know that you're looking at me. We're engaged back and forth, and hopefully your brain's engaged. What's this idiot going to say next? I don't mind you thinking that, because it keeps you engaged in the program. Can we find a seat? Probably back next to Steve somewhere. So let's talk about public speaking. There's an organization called Toastmasters International. That means it's all over the globe. Relatively low threshold to join. You walk in, they welcome you, you sit down. If you want to join a club, it's like $36 a year or something like that. I've been a member off and on for 35 years. Started in Eugene, Oregon, went to Seattle, came to Bainbridge. I'm in 2 clubs now. I've been in the Paulsbo Club. I've been doing this for 40 years. Why would I keep attending a Toastmasters Club? Practice. Thank you. Next point. In order to become polished and comfortable and at ease in front of an audience, you need what we call face time. Face time means just what I'm doing. You need to have your face in front of lots of other faces, moving your lips and having a conversation. The more often you do it, the deeper your relaxation becomes, because you realize if people throw vegetables, at least you're a vegetarian and you can eat. I made that part up just in the moment. The point is, you realize the more and more often you do this, that the audience is more afraid of me screwing up than I am. Why? Because you don't want to be up here. How do I know you don't want to be up here?
Because we're here.
Because you're not up here. So learning to be conversational and at ease just takes lots of practice. So I keep going to Toastmasters so I can practice. I don't think I can get too much practice. I've made 12, 14, 1,500 presentations. I've lost count. I've taught classes. I taught at the junior college. That's all FaceTime. You can do this at home, but you might grow tired of the face you're looking at. You can do it with a spouse or a partner. They may grow tired of the face they're looking at. You can read a book about it. You can watch a tape about it. Absolutely nothing is more valuable than simply doing it. Stand up in front of a group of strangers, move your lips, realize you didn't die, realize nobody accosted you afterwards, you didn't get beat up in the alley. People smiled at you, thank you very much. So there's this interchange energetically. My energy carries the room. The speaker's energy carries the room. So I need to be relaxed. How many of you did I meet before today? Or I met you today as you came in and greeted you? So why would I do that? So you know me and I get to know C with a K a little bit, right? Who you are, why you're here. What else happens when I do that?
Well, reconnection.
You reconnect. Yeah. Mickey and I have known each other 20 years, 23 years. Started a mastermind group together years and years ago. Followed you around from the acoustical to the, oh my goodness, lots of places. Okay. So what I'm going to suggest you do to take your speaking to the next level is consider joining a Toastmasters club or any group where you have to stand up once in a while and speak, just so you can get this face time that I'm talking about. I like Toastmasters. I'm obviously advocating Toastmasters. Commercial sale, okay? You ready? This will be short. I also teach this little class that the 3 ladies are in where we take people to the next level. Because Toastmasters doesn't give you enough face time. If you're in an active club, you give a speech maybe once every 3 or 4 weeks. I'm suggesting you need to find a way to be in front of people on a much more frequent basis. So what venues come to mind? What can you think of? Give me some feedback.
Well, meetings.
Wendy, any kind of a meeting?
Regular meeting.
Yeah, we've got a lot of people go to City Hall meetings and stand up and do FaceTime. What do they say?
I don't know. But everything is given out in 3 minutes.
Oh my God, they make it up, don't they? Have you not watched the film or gone to one of those meetings? It's quite intriguing, isn't it? You find out you're not the only idiot living on Bainbridge Island. I mean, let's be honest about this. Toastmasters is an excellent way to get started. Any meeting you can go to. I want more ideas, though. Meetings are good. What else could you do? What other group could you join where you'd have some FaceTime?
Rotary or Kiwanis or Lions.
Good. Rotary, Kiwanis, Lions Club, any of those clubs, because you, in fact, stand up. I did this to one group, and they said, Alcoholics Anonymous. I thought, well, I never thought about that, but I guess you do have something in common, and you could stand up and get some FaceTime. Anything else come to mind? Wendy's cracking up. Anything else? Say it again.
Coaching.
Coaching. So say more about that, Sid. Were you the coach? Were you the coach?
I have many.
Okay. That would work.
Rugby coach.
Good. Good. So let's go back to Sid as an example of somebody that wants to sell a product. So how's Sid going to do this? Sid may be scared to death to be up here. So Sid could, I'm making this up as I go, Sid could call in other professionals related to his field, but not in competition with him. I keep hitting the mic, Steve. I hope you'll forgive me. Told you I wouldn't. I lied. What can I say? So Sid would invite in whom? He's doing a film for preserving memories photographically of your treasures so that with the insurance thing. So who else could he call in? I think he'd call in the fire marshal. Because a lot of us have a low threshold about how often fires occur. So he's got instant credibility with his product because the fire marshal is one of his speakers. Now Sid's FaceTime is reduced to introducing the fire marshal. The fire marshal does all the talking. Sid gets up and says, thank you very much. The presentation's over. But Sid's risk of making a fool of himself has been reduced by the amount of time it took. Okay. And Eugene, go ahead.
Oh,
It's okay.
oh, okay.
We love questions.
His insurance agent.
Say that again.
His insurance agent.
Perfect. Perfect. But what can the insurance agent not do?
So,
Mom said sell. Insurance agent can't sell. Nobody in the room sells. Why not?
we lose the education.
I'm educating. Educating. Exactly. Okay. So when I started my real estate investment seminar in Eugene, Oregon in 1976, I did not know a single soul in Eugene, Oregon. My wife at the time and I had moved there. We didn't know anybody. I wanted to have credibility in the community as a real estate investment broker because I knew I could do that. I'd done it for 10 years back in Florida. And I thought, how am I going to meet people? It's a town of 100,000 people. Having made lots of presentations, having taught school at night, community college, I wasn't afraid of FaceTime, but I didn't exist as a person that was credible. I just showed up in town. So I made a point to go out and meet the best CPA in town, the best tax attorney in town who understood real estate taxation. I met the best appraiser in town. I met Doug McCool, the best builder in town. And I sat down with each of these people over lunch and got to know them. Said, I'd like to offer you $50 to come in and talk for 30 minutes to a group of people who I haven't identified yet, who are going to come together in a little workshop on real estate investing. Every single one said, I'd be happy to do it. Every single one said, but I don't want your $50. Why would they do that?
But they're getting exposure as well.
God, you're perfect. They're getting exposure as well. So I wasn't nervous about being the speaker, but I had no credibility. So the brochure that went out had their names highlighted, and mine in little tiny print as the Master of Ceremonies. After I'd done that a time or two, I'd gone through this cycle a time or two, I was getting feedback from the audience members, how's this going, is this working for you? And people said, Bob, you know most of the material as well as these guys do. Why don't you do the presenting and get rid of the experts? And I thought, okay. It hadn't cost me anything to have the experts, but I've done it 2 or 3 times now. I'm getting a little bit of street credibility. Why? I'm associated. I was telling the girls this morning, it was so much fun. Can I call you girls or ladies, or what do you want me to call you? Students. Students in my class on public speaking. Yes, as they were. Yes. The best workshop I ever gave in Seattle was one that never occurred. Jim Reinhardsen, who is a tax-deferred exchange expert, attorney in town, wonderful soul, and a CPA woman whose name I cannot remember because I only met her the once over lunch, and I were to give this all-day workshop on tax-deferred exchanging. Very high-level CPAs, attorneys were invited. And the day of the event, we got a snowstorm in Seattle. I know that doesn't happen often, but the weather just sucked. Nobody showed up. We showed up. Nobody showed up. I'm still getting praise today from people in Seattle that I had only known casually about how great they heard that workshop was. I never gave the workshop. Sid's thinking, I could do this, Bob. You promote the hell out of it, you never have it, and they praise you and buy your product. This will work.
But you got to create the snowstorm first, though.
Have to do what?
You got to create the snowstorm.
Yeah, you do. You've got to create the snowstorm. I had nothing to do with that, I promise. There's another thing you need to know that I consider obvious but not so obvious. So this is the notion that you never know who you're speaking to. I didn't know who Bill and Al really were when they were in my little real estate workshop. The fellow whose name we couldn't remember had praised them as being nice guys that ate donuts, drank coffee, and talked about their real estate, but I didn't know how deeply invested they were in real estate. I didn't know how confused they were about their real estate. I didn't know I'd do $50 million worth of business with them in 10 years the day I met them. I did not know that. So I want you to remember what I call the power of one. You never know who's in your audience. So Sid might do this wonderful presentation for a bunch of people about what he's doing, and during his remarks mention that he used to have this glass business, and he still has lots of glass in his garage. I'm making this up. Lots of glass in his garage, and somebody in the room he didn't even know was going to be there is a specialist in etched glass and says, Sid, can we have lunch and I can look at your thing? And he buys out everything Sid had left. How's Sid doing? Power of one. I'm teaching a community college class in Jacksonville, Florida. I'm 23 years old. I've had my license 4 years. I'm teaching a class because I mastered the material. I wanted to know it to get my license. I'm being paid like $1,200 every 3 months to come out, and it takes a lot of time to prepare a class at a junior college and not look like an idiot. And I still look like an idiot, even with the preparation. And there's a guy in town named Hugh Culverhouse. Does anybody know that name? I'm not a sports nut, but Hugh Culverhouse was a tax attorney in Jacksonville, Florida that was the first owner of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers football team. I don't do football. And Hugh and his partner, Sandy Morris, owned 2,200 apartment units in town, and I was the apartment specialist, I thought, in Jacksonville, Florida. But there's no way I would ever gain any credibility or meet these guys because they're at this level, and Bob's 23 or 24 and just starting in the business. A guy comes up from the class one night and he said, Bob, he said, could we grab a lunch maybe? Do you have time during your work day to have lunch? I said, sure. And I'm scanning my thing to see what's this guy's name because I didn't even know I knew his first name, but who is this guy? It was Wynn Gardner, I think was his name. Tax attorney, CPA, in the class to get his real estate license because he works for Hugh Culverhouse and Sandy Morris. Never forget the power of one. I'm giving a class in Bellevue on tax-deferred exchanging. I'm not being paid a lot of dough. I'm kind of breaking even. I'm glad to do it. A guy comes up at lunch and said, could we talk for 5 minutes after the workshop's over at 5? I said, sure. I'm looking for his name. It's just David on the name tag. And after the seminar, we sit outside. It's a summer day. I'm in Victoria Square over in Bellevue. I got to catch a ferry because I live over here. And he said, just 5 minutes. 2.5 hours later, I've said maybe a paragraph. I know that's hard for you to believe because I'm the one speaking today, but believe me, with Dave, I'd only gotten out about a paragraph. And he cried, he poured out his heart. He's married to this woman who runs a real estate department in a family-owned business of 100 years. They hired him. He lasted 6 months. Her brother didn't like him. He's been fired. He's out on the street. He knows they got all these real estate problems. They need to exchange everything. Blah, 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 for 2.5 hours. I got home at 8:30 that night. My wife thinks I'm having an affair. The whole bit. It was before cell phones. I couldn't even get a break to go pee with Dave. Nice guy. I love Dave. He introduced me to the wife 6 months later. I seem to have this 6 months delay thing going, don't I? And I met the grandpa, and I met the people that own the firm. And if I use the name, everybody in the room would go, oh, wow, he worked for them. Can't do it. It's confidential, right? I'd have to kill you. Okay. The point is, I ended up working for them for 10 years. Why? Because I met Dave. And I liked him. And I quit looking at my watch. And I just listened to this guy pour out his heart. What's that called? It's called being a human being. Just being present with somebody that's gushing. I have no idea how many lives I've touched accidentally, inadvertently, over the years in presentations. I've had some feedback. I've had people come up and thank me. I've had people come up 10 years later and said, I don't know if you remember me, but you gave that talk and you told that story about your son, and I went home and had that same conversation with my son, and it was wonderful and it really worked. Thank you so much. And I'm still reeling, trying to remember when I gave that talk and which story it was about my son, because I got lots of stories about my son. Okay, quick summary. The most single effective way to be in front of an audience, to build rapport, to build safety, to experience expertise back and forth, is in a small group setting like this, where they've got a little skin in the game, and you do what I'm doing today with you, which is what? Have a conversation. So if I'm having a conversation, am I nervous? Are you nervous when you have a conversation? Not usually. Do you think I'm feeling nervous? Are you feeling nervous sitting in the room? No, I'm at ease. I know half the people in the room. That helps. My mom's here from Texas. Lying to an audience really helps. Yes, she actually looks like maybe we should date. What do you think? I want to make sure I've covered everything for you. So this is the time when we talk about the most important thing that you're going to hear, and that is FaceTime goes with something else. And most people don't want to hear this, but professions that pay really well, and I'm suggesting that this presentation will pay me really well. If I never hear from another person in the room again, I've gotten a lot of benefit out of preparing. 4 hours it took to prepare something I've done 2 or 3 times, and that's where I'm headed with this. You got to practice. It's like the tennis player. It's like the runner. It's like any professional. You must practice. FaceTime is part of practice. What's the rest of practice? You got to write out your material. I thought I'd show you this little mind map, just to confirm for those of you that weren't sure just how nutty I am. So I got the call from Leslie. She said, would you be our lead-off speaker in the presentation thing? And I sat down and I basically go clockwise. Tony Bazan, is that a name anybody knows? Yes. Tony was the guy that did the mind map books? Yeah. So I put the name of what I'm doing in the middle. In this case it says, using your speaking skills to build your business, blah, 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 blah. And then I tend to go clockwise, and I start out with the most important thing in the corner. Can anybody see that?
Stories.
It says stories. How many stories have I told you already today? Several. Why do we use stories? People relate to stories. Why else would we use a story? Make it come alive. Got a little energy in it. So did I tell a story about you, or did I tell a story about me? I told a story about me. Why would you tell a story about yourself rather than someone in the audience?
Don't want to embarrass them.
Don't want to embarrass them. We're just getting started and we're not over, so maybe I will. You don't want me to embarrass them. The point is that a story that's authentic comes from your life. So you need to be selfish as a speaker and make sure your stories come from your life, not from someone else's life.
Story about Sid. You told the story about Sid.
The story about
Sid.
Sid. I pulled Sid right in. I saw Sid come in. I thought, God, I haven't seen Sid in years. It's good to see him. I asked Sid, I said, what are you doing now? Because I thought maybe he's still doing the glass work. That's when he gave me his card, told me what he's doing. So there's a story. Stories connect us to ourselves, because you can all relate to my stories. There's nothing extraordinary standing in front of you. This is a high school graduate that's not afraid to move his lips in front of other people to share what information he knows about the topic. But practice, 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 in addition to FaceTime, is absolutely fundamental to being a good public speaker. I think you got to own your material. I think you have to memorize your material. So I flew to Hawaii in 1998 over the protest of my, at the time, sweet wife, because I spent $4,000 in 3.5 days of my life to hear Steve Siebold, who is in a partnership with a guy named Bill Gove. Bill Gove founded the National Speakers Association. This is a credible guy. And Steve was his partner for years until he passed away. So Steve invites the world to come to Hawaii. I think there were 8 of us in the room at $4,000 a pop for 3 days. And he holds forth about how he makes $15,000 every time he gives a keynote speech. So here's the story for you about practice. When he met Bill Gove, he wasn't making any money. In fact, Bill heard him give a speech and then took him aside and said, young man, I just want to talk to you. I'm just curious, do you intend to make a living as a speaker? And Steve was a retired from professional tennis kind of guy. He'd injured himself and couldn't play anymore. And he was trying to make a life as a speaker. And Steve says, yeah, absolutely, Mr. Gold. I want to make a good living as a speaker. He says, no, you're not. He says, you're terrible. You're horrible. He said, how much money did you make today? He said, well, I got $150. He said, how much time did you spend in preparation? He said, oh, about 30 minutes. He said, well, there's the disconnect. There's the disconnect. And Steve said, well, what do you mean? And he said, well, you weren't really prepared for these people. You ripped these people off. They paid you too much. And he said, and it showed from the back of the room. So here's what I'll do with you, Steve, if you'd like. I'll work with you for 1 year. And I want you to write a speech that you can deliver to what we call the animal clubs. Lions, elks. I don't know why Rotary is considered an animal club. I'm in that Rotary club, and God knows if you go to the auction, you feel like there's a bunch of animals running around. But anyway, so he crafted this speech, and Bill let him craft it, and then Bill went with him every time he delivered it for free to the clubs, to the animal clubs. This is South Florida. And he gave the speech 100 times, the same exact 20-minute speech. And each time he gave it, Bill'd take him aside, and they'd work it, and they'd work it, and they'd work it. I mean, work it. You getting the homework part of this, the practice part of this? And Bill had made him a promise. He said, if you'll do this for free 100 times, on your 101st delivery, you'll share the stage with me, and we'll be in front of 10,000 people. Steve said, well, that sounds intriguing. But he gave the exact same speech, tweaked it every time, practiced it every time, changed it every time. And the 101st time, he said, I felt like a rock star. He said, I had on a $6,000 suit. They picked us up and took us to the back of the theater in a limousine. He said, I came out on the stage with all these bright lights. Bill told me how to connect with the audience so I could do that. And I gave the exact same speech that I'd given for free 100 times. And when I was done, Bill handed me a check for $15,000. I'm listening to Steve. I just paid him $4,000 to move his lips in my presence with 8 other people. I'm thinking, that's a powerful story. That tells me he really owns the point about practicing. He's still doing it. He's still on the web. You can go type in Bill Gove or type in Steve Siebold, and up will come a video. He's still making a living. $15,000, he gets $20,000 for a day. Teaches mental toughness, which as an ex-parent I can relate to. I think we all need that class before we actually get married and produce children. That's a personal opinion. Okay, so this is the question and answer period. We're going to throw it open. We're going to be out of here at 1, and I notice the clock says 20 of 1, so we've got plenty of time. So throw your questions at me. What do you want to know about anything we've covered? The presentation game, the public speaking game, the practice game, questions. Yes, ma'am.
How about PowerPoint while you're speaking?
How about PowerPoint while you're speaking?
Creating a visual.
I love it. Did you hear a question? What about PowerPoint and creative stuff behind you? So she's the perfect foil for this, so this isn't directed at you. I didn't use a PowerPoint today. I could have. Why didn't I?
Because you want eyes on you.
I want eyes on me. You're doing this very well. Any other point of view?
Lose the connection with your audience.
I lose the connection with my audience when I'm up here. What else?
You have a great projection in your voice. You have a great voice. So
Oh, I've got a good voice.
Take advantage of it.
Okay, so why not take advantage of it? I like that.
You don't want them to focus on the data, especially if you have charts and graphs and stuff, because they'll be reading numbers and all that, and they'll just...
I don't want them focused on the data, because if they get engaged in the data, they're having a whole different conversation in their head. Yes, sir?
And you're more flexible. You can adapt what you're saying on the fly.
Perfect. Much more flexible up here as the speaker. What is it that's true about audiovisual equipment that you may not know? Nothing breaks down more often. Nothing.
The demonstration will fail.
Nothing. And if you want to suck the air out of a room when you're the presenter, get up there and hit the thing.
Oh, yeah.
Again. And again. And again. And again. And again. All the energy, we talked about this morning, all the energy leaves the room. Why? Because the focus of everyone's attention is offline. Now we're talking to the mechanic who's going to come in and fix the slideshow. I grew up in elementary school being the kid that ran the projector for the movie every Friday. It always broke. And I think I just integrated that learning. I don't want to ever be vulnerable to a burned out light bulb, a plug that comes out. Now having said that, Millions of people are using PowerPoint as I stand here. What are they doing to their audience? They're boring them to tears. They're actually, I've seen speakers come back and say, okay, and then they read it to the audience.
Oh gosh, yeah.
As if the audience is blind or incapable of reading. It's insulting, isn't it? Have you not had this experience? I could put a pretty picture up there, but then what are you doing? Oh, you're off somewhere, you know. So I'm not a big fan of PowerPoint and the other things, and sometimes they're great. The way I learned it and the way I've read it and the way I've experienced it is that it distracts from your focus on me and the content, and I can't win. Rotary had a wonderful speaker about a month and a half ago. I told the class about this, and the gentleman really had great material, and he'd memorized it, and he owned it, and everything else, and I hope he showed up early and stayed late, which is what we're going to talk about in a second, but the gear didn't work. So he bent over with his butt facing the audience to fix it. What happened to the energy that he'd created with his wonderful introductory? It disappeared up his pants. It was ridiculous. I felt so sorry for this guy. I felt very sorry for this guy. I was the first person, other than you and Steve and Jason, where's Jason, and you, sweet Karen, in the room today. Why would I come early to my own event?
To greet people.
They had just done a wonderful job moving the tables in a way that wouldn't work, and they were very gracious. And they turned around when I said, well, let's do it this way, not knowing how many were coming, because I want to be in the end of the U and blah, blah, blah. And Jason just flexed, and Karen, and we did it. We whipped it. And we created this little hole so that you guys could get to the inner circle. Thank God we did that. I'll also be the last person to leave. Why should I be the last person to leave? Because in addition to the food that you came for that you're not going to get, you came to get some content, and I'm the content provider. So I'll be here until the last person leaves.
Or because the power of one, they might still be.
Power of one. Never discount the power of one. Thank you, Sid. I love these bonbons that come back to me. They're wonderful. You should be the first person in the room. You should be the last person to leave the room. Questions? Thank you. Great question.
Just an observance on my part. I have a habit of taking notes.
Good. Okay.
But because you didn't use a screen or anything,
Yeah.
it allowed me not to feel like I had to take notes.
So I freed you up. Told you I had everything in writing. Yeah. Told you you might go home and find something I forgot to cover. It is possible. I do get engaged. Okay, other questions? Yes, ma'am.
What about the generation that's just hooked onto their
What about the generation that's so used to doing this that they've got calluses on their thumbs from doing all of that, and their eyeballs, they've got cataracts at 13. And so that's not an audience that sits still. That's not an audience that sits still. So if I'm speaking to that audience as the speaker, I've got to get my energy level up about 2 more notches. I'm probably going to have the slides, because these are visual creatures. I'm living with a 17-year-old boy, I swear to God. I read somewhere that they text 3,000 times a month. I thought, that's an outrageous amount. And then I watched Sterling. I think he's up to 5,000 a month. They don't call each other anymore. They say the same thing in a text. Pause, wait, here comes the other text. Maybe they're all introverted and they need more time. I don't know. It's a different audience. They don't sit still. They don't usually go to things like this. They just don't. Other questions? Yes, ma'am.
What if you're required to use slides?
What if you're required by whom?
I put a proposal in for Ignite, which is part of the reason that I
Okay.
signed up for this. So I'm going to be in a situation where I'm going to be extremely dictated by slides.
So Wendy here did a presentation at Ignite Seattle with 17 other presenters. Went over. She was wonderful. Hey, you. I don't care for the Ignite Seattle and Ignite Bainbridge format, and nobody cares, and it's okay that they don't. It wasn't designed by a speaker, I can tell you that. So here's the way it works. At Ignite Seattle, there's 20 slides running behind me. The second I start moving my lips, they hit the little thing, and every 15 seconds a new slide comes up. And I've got 5 minutes from beginning to end to present my material. Wendy going, oh yeah, and the slides are going. Personally, I think it rips off the audience because they get distracted because now they're focused on the slides and blah, blah, blah. Yes, sir?
There's a trick.
There is a trick.
You can use the same slide 20 times.
I could use the same slides what?
20 times.
Just keep rolling that thing.
Everybody felt sorry for me because they thought Jason had screwed up or something.
And I suggested,
Explain what you're doing.
I suggested,
You could at least, we used like 4.
the rules are pretty flexible.
Yeah.
And I suggested using just one, and I forget. Maybe it was Leslie said, oh, we're not doing that, Bob. We're doing 20. I said, okay,
I was
fine.
happy with my presentation.
Yeah. If you think about what you've heard from me, how can I have a 5-minute conversation with you if you're watching 20 slides at the same time? It's unkind. Wendy and I spent an hour today. We're retweaking. She's tweaking her thing that she gave over in Seattle. And we both admit this is a terrible format. I mean, it takes more than 5 minutes.
It's an appropriate format for certain presentations.
It's performance art, is my personal opinion. I think it's entertainment. Perfect. Perfect. It's perfect for that. Yes, ma'am. Question.
Yes, you mentioned upping your energy level
Yes.
for like younger people, and also
Yes.
video saps the energy out of you. What do you do to what sort
So
of
before you all came in today, I made sure that I was mic'd up. Steve helped me get mic'd up. I went outside, and I think you were out there, and you and I were at the counter. And I blew my nose, because the most embarrassing thing I've ever done as a speaker is have, okay, enough of that. Yep. And then as I came back in the room, I did a little mental thing that I do, where I'm walking into a stadium, and it's full. And as I walk in, everybody in the stadium stands up and goes, yes! That either scares the poopy out of you, or in my case, brings my energy up. Because a crowd that size has a lot of energy. Obama is a flawless public speaker. He's got that whole melodic preacher thing going underneath. He's poised. He knows how to address the audience. He knows how to keep them engaged. He's got powerful things to say. When you really examine what he had to say, you're amazed to find there wasn't a lot of particulars. But he is a politician, and he carries the day with his, my point is, his energy. Got great energy. So find a little trick that works for you. The energy's all right here. That key thing right there at the navel. So any way you can elevate that will work. In the little workshop we do, we teach people how to do certain little tricks. It takes too much time to do it today, but we can talk one-on-one afterwards. Other questions? Yes, ma'am.
I have, well, I was requested to give some accounting, so accounting is my thing. And, I always tease my kids, I am such a funny mom. But when I'm standing in front of giving really dry material, it is really hard for me to bring out, the color that
that is you.
It's my reputation. Anyway, just something.
So I'll share a little notion with you that'll help you. One of the things speakers do that are going to have to give the same material a lot of times is they design what's called vignettes. So a vignette runs a minute to 5 minutes. My story about Bill and Al was a vignette. My story about Dave and the 2.5 hours and the crying was a vignette. You got to own your vignettes. That means that's totally memorized. I'm not going to stop and go, no, what's his name? Dave Smith. It's got to be smooth. And we've got one member in our little study group right now that doesn't think she does humor. But the truth is everybody else in the group, she's a crack-up. She just is a naturally humorous person. So your challenge is to find something funny in your life, a vignette, that you can bring to that party when you're talking to CPAs or somebody about a boring accounting subject. And you can just take a little segue off. Just go over there for just a second. That brings to mind, God, I had a guy filed so late one year that they repossessed his horse. And he didn't even own the horse. It was so embarrassing because he'd left all the, it needs to be the truth. Right. Yeah? Shovel it a little deeper, Bob. Okay. You get the point. So you write a little vignette, you memorize it, and it has humor within the story. So you don't have to be humorous. You're simply telling a story that happens to be universally humorous. I was sharing with the group this morning, we love words with C. Cluck, clank, clever, Kentucky, cute. Why do we like those sounds? It just sounds different on our ear. This is an American thing. This is an English thing. The funniest Johnny Carson skit I ever saw, he and Ed went back and forth for 3 or 4 minutes using nothing but C and K words. Let me tell you about Claude Kloppenheimer for Kentucky. And they went on like that for 5 minutes. The audience was in absolute tears listening to the C's and the K's. We just like them, as opposed to Mississippi, which just kind of rolls along. So there's a craft here. Say again?
Makes you fall asleep.
Makes you fall asleep, exactly. Other questions? I know you got some. Who's nervous about learning to be a speaker? Tell the truth. Just doesn't appeal to you. Okay? So Toastmasters is so non-threatening. It truly is. We had a new gal in the other night. I would go to the evening club, and I'd met her years before. Her husband's a CPA on the island. And I said, why are you here? She said, I just don't want to be nervous when I stand up in front of a group anymore. And I figured this is a place that I can learn that. And it is, because everybody in the room's got the same issues. We're all struggling with the same stuff. I talk about butterflies being an okay thing, but my goal with people is to help them get those babies flying in formation. So at least I know where they're headed in my gut, and I'm not surprised later. You can do that. You can become at ease up here. Other questions? Okay. Here's the take.
When do the Toastmasters meet?
They meet, I'm going to give you the information on the back of the handout, but I'll go ahead and tell you they meet Wednesday, second and fourth Wednesday, and both clubs meet at the same place, which is the Winslow Arms Apartments down here off of Parfit. So the Wednesday club meets at the second and fourth Wednesday evenings from 7 till around 8:30 at the clubhouse, and the lunch meeting meets on the first and third Thursdays from 11:50 to 1:30 or to 1 o'clock. Good. The handout has the clubs on the back. Quick summary. I know from experience, I fed my family for 40 years with clients that I've met through small presentations like this. I can't think of a single client that I've met that ended up being in a long-term relationship that I didn't meet just this way. So it is the single most powerful way you can present your idea, your product, your service to other humans without turning them off. You can build rapport and safety in the room. You give them all the product information that they want. You just let them know how to reach you. Is this making sense? That's it. Millions of people have stood up here and spoken. You're not going to be carving new territory. You won't be the first 8 to stand up off all fours and go, hey, I got something to say. Millions and millions and millions of people have done it. The most effective way is to do what we've done today. We called it having a what?
Conversation.
A conversation. I promised you I'd give you handouts, right? And she told me 20 were coming, and my gut said no, so I printed 30, and I think we're going to be okay. What else was the hallmark to getting good at this?
Preparedness.
Practice, preparation. And what was the other words that we used? 2 words? FaceTime. You got to be out there. And we said this is a conversation. You're just having a conversation. You're educating other people. You're sharing information. Who's first in the room? The speaker. Who's last in the room? The speaker. Exactly. I'm surprised you don't have more questions. The question I'd have as a newbie would be, so how do I publicize my event? Sid's going to leave here with his head of steam and say, I'm going to go invite people to come in and hear about my product. How does Steve invite people? How many of you have a business, a product, a service? Am I talking to the wrong group? Okay. So how are you going to invite people to come listen to you? That's a great question, I think. And frankly, it's the most daunting for most people. How are you going to do this? Go ahead.
Talking.
Karen says talking, yes. What else can I do? So that's word of mouth, which is the best.
And
but
it needs to be an invitation.
And it has to be an invitation. Light and easy. Hey, Sid, I've got this new product that I'm doing, and frankly, it's boring to talk about, but it's very powerful for people. So, you and I haven't had a beer in a long time. I'm giving a little talk down at Expats. It's Friday afternoon at 3. It'll go from 3 to 4. I promise you'll be out the door at 4, and I'll buy you a beer. I just need somebody in the audience that I know. He's there. He's there. How else am I going to do this? Do you want to use social media? Is it effective? At a certain level, it's effective. We were talking beforehand. There's other places where it's not so effective. I find LinkedIn for business tends to be more effective for me. The people are a little bit more connected into a business kind of mindset than Facebook, where I know that I'm talking to a 4-year-old who lives in Kentucky, whose real name is Alice, and she's pretending she's Sid, or whatever, Facebook is way too weird for me, but people use it. What else can I do?
The subjective comments.
Say again?
What you just said was very subjective.
Thank you. I'm entitled to my opinion. It's true. No, I'm using social media. I'm not discounting it. I'm just saying.
It sounded like an objective statement, but it was very subjective.
Got it. Is that okay? Am I allowed?
No, you are. Just as long as we're allowed to call you out.
Thank you. And he did. Did you get that? So what's he saying? Let's be fair. What's his point of view? Facebook can be more powerful than I led you to believe. How'd I do? See, I know both sides. Okay. Question.
Well, what about articles?
Articles are great. So I had lunch with Bill Oak a month or so ago. And he said, you know, I've been writing articles for the Kitsap Business Journal for 25 years. I've never gotten any business from it. Now, point, counterpoint. I wrote an article for the Kitsap Business Journal about buying trophy properties and how you have to pay a little more to do it. When I first moved to the island in 1986, I got 4 calls within a week and 1 converted to a client. So I think it depends on the market that's reading your material. I think it's a wonderful way to get your name out there. I mean, we talk about this branding and everything. Who do you know? Who do you know? Reach out to people that you know. When I started this workshop that I'm doing for speakers, I didn't advertise it. I didn't run an ad in a review. I didn't stick it into what's happening. I called people that I knew that knew me and said, I'm going to do this. What do you think? And 2 or 3 people said, well, I'm going to tell some people. Another one said, I'm interested. I've only got 4 in the group, but that's all I want. Focused attention. You build things word of mouth. We started with that. It's the best. Yes, sir.
I had lunch with Bill Hope yesterday. He suggested that he present himself with Einstein's
That's fun. That's fun.
Because he looks like Einstein.
He does.
Really,
and he's wise like Einstein.
Wise, yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe in speaking and presenting, giving something a little twist to what you present.
Why not? Why not? I gave you written material. It's got my name on it. I gave you a little brochure. It's got my name on it. I still think presentations are best, just because they've worked so fabulously. University of Texas, 1963, did a study paid for by guess who? A seminar firm to determine the most effective way to share information with customers. And they decided, I'm so just blown away, that seminars are the best way to do it. But having said that, they are the best way to do it. Question?
I just want to compliment you on your entire presentation.
Well, thank you.
It was great. I also would suggest that if you were giving a talk at a place like this, which is a social media place, that you might spend some of your homework time investigating what is promoted here so that your audience isn't disappointed.
Perfect. Did you hear what she had to say? Knowing that I'd be in this medium, which is a social medium, and a co-working medium, I might have also geared some remarks to that. Thank you. Good input.
Is there a difference when you're trying to get, like, if you want a little YouTube on your website, for instance, that promotes you, versus just a static picture, that's a whole different delivery.
It is. So I just got to keep being honest, and I know that other people that disagree or that have a different point of view are going to be honest, and you'll get all of it. I find so much more value in face-to-face if I can create it than any other single thing I can think of, including social media. I just don't think you can beat this eye-to-eye contact. I'm standing up here without a podium so you can see all of me. I want to be vulnerable to you. I want you to know I'm a guy standing in front of you. Take your best shot. I love it. I love it. Take a shot. But if it comes down to I'll meet you for lunch versus I'll meet you on Facebook or YouTube or LinkedIn, please have lunch with that individual, because that's where the Dave 2.5-hour conversation is. He and I had such deep rapport after 2.5 hours, with me speaking 15 minutes and him speaking 2 hours and 15 minutes. You couldn't have blown us apart with an atom bomb. He trusted me. He respected me. He valued my opinion. He endorsed me to his wife. That's huge for husbands. And to his grandfather, this 110-year-old company.
I think you said something important there in that you listened, and that establishes the best rapport.
I think listening is a wonderful way to build rapport. I agree with you. Yes. So I love all these other things. I think they all work. They'll bring people to you. If I've got a little video going on my website, people are going to know me a little bit better because they at least see me vulnerable as opposed to a static picture or something. So I'm just curious, how many of you buy from a static picture and a bunch of text, a product that costs money, that you value? We all do, but we do it with what kind of product?
Static products.
Say again?
Static products.
Static product, you can send it back. But if you're buying a service, if you're an accountant or you're a real estate advisor or you're a speaker advisor or you have a service, Sid, you're really selling a service, I think. I think it's hard to sell that through social media because there's no feedback. That's just an opinion. And clearly I'm wrong, because billions of dollars worth of products are being sold, even as I'm speaking to you on the internet. Yes, sir. Who had a question?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
This is a very timely talk for me.
Oh, good.
Because I'm starting to give some presentations.
Wonderful.
On the weekend to try to market my product.
I love it.
And I'm doing it by offering a free film. So I show a film.
Okay.
And then talk.
A short film and then you talk, so it's a conversation.
It's a conversation, and it has nothing to do actually with my product.
Okay.
Hopefully there's a sort of trust and appreciation of the film, which will draw them into finding out what I do. And
so you hope to inspire them to come talk to you a little further about the product that they've seen, and they've heard you speak, and it's a conversation.
Yeah.
I love it.
We'll see if it works.
I love it. It works. I guarantee it works. You got to work it.
Yeah.
How many of you think you're going to go back to your office and somebody's going to call you and say, you know, I just heard Bob Linz gave that talk, and listen, I want to take all the pain out of this. I'll set it up. I'll invite all the people. I'll set up the room. In fact, I'll fund the entire thing, and I don't want any return for 5 years on my money. That ain't going to happen. Somebody's going to have to sit down and call the facility. Somebody's going to have to write the material and practice it until they own it. Someone's going to have to make sure that the audience they've invited is the audience that can buy the product. Don't be sending your invites to people that don't own a home. Got it? Who's the most likely candidate to buy Sid's product? That's who he wants to invite. I'm thinking it's the guy or the gal that's got some serious expensive art on the wall, got some serious toys in the garage, person that stands something to lose if they lose their home. And price point Sid disappears. A person like that, price point disappears. Don't get hung up on yourself when you're doing this from up here. Get hung up on the audience. What do they need to hear? What do you know they don't know that you can share in your presentation? That's why they came. That's what they want to hear from you. And if you're focused out here, can you be focused in here? When I first started speaking, I just thought, because we all do, everybody's looking at me. Well, duh, you're up front. So what? Check yourself out in the mirror, make sure you're not, and you're good to go. Have I made any mistakes today? I know of 6 gaffes that I made. I know of at least 6. But I'm not going to beat myself up over them because I'm just having a conversation. I screw up all the time in conversations. Don't you? You say something, that's not really what I meant. What I meant was, that's okay. It's not a performance, it's a conversation. Yes, sir?
Quick question. I found the interaction conversation. What about asking questions? Just throwing it out to the audience. Is that...
Well, I've done it the entire time we've been here today, so obviously I believe in it.
Yeah.
Yes.
But there's certainly the right kind and the wrong kind of question.
So would you like a little thing on that? So the wrong kind is something that you answer yes or no. So the best questions that I could ask from up here are ones that engage your thinking process. So I might want to, I love this topic. Thank you. Well, you just tossed it up there.
All right.
What's the easiest way to convey important information to another human being? What's the single most effective way to convey information to another human being? I'll give you a hint. I just did it.
Ask a question.
Ask what kind of question?
Open-ended.
An open-ended question that requires the respondent to think. 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 I want your brain engaged after I ask the question. Why do I want your brain engaged?
So you can have them pay attention to you.
Yes. What else is going on here? What they come out with is their opinion, their statement. I could say to you, real estate's absolutely the best investment you could ever make with your money. And that's Bob's opinion. And you just lost 300 grand on your top-end house because you bought in 08. Do I have any credibility with you whatsoever about that statement I made? No. But if I say, can you think of a person in your life that started off with not very much, that ended up with a great deal more, that invested in real estate, and tell me, what is it that person did that you didn't do? You're all doing this. I love this. It's an example. You're all doing this. You're all thinking, I remember Fred, I remember Sarah. I've got you. You're engaged. That's all I want. I want you to engage. I want you to own the conclusion. If I make a conclusive statement to an audience and you don't buy it, what happened to my credibility? Plummets. I got to tell this story. I was teaching a real estate class in West Seattle. 35 people in the room. It's on ethics. My only ground rule in my workshops, in addition to you don't need to raise your hand to go to the bathroom, we all know where you went, is that Anytime you make a statement of opinion, you own it by saying, I think, I feel. Why? Because then I know I can disagree with you without you losing credibility with me. We had a bigot in the room. Guy was about 28 years old. He could not sit down. He could not shut up. He was the office target of a lot of ridicule because he was so bigoted. He was bigoted about race. He was bigoted about sexuality. He was bigoted about how do I know? I heard him. He was bigoted about politics. So every time I'd make a statement, an I statement from the front of the room demonstrating how you do this, he'd say, oh, you're just full of it. Everybody knows Italians are this way, or everybody knows Roman Catholics are that way. And he just, everybody knows. And I stop and say, hey, Ralph. He'd go, what? I say, Ralph, how do you feel? He said, what do you mean? I'm telling you how. No, Ralph. I want to hear you say I, and then the rest of the statement. Well, that slowed him down a bit. And he came up to me at lunch. He's not the kind of guy that would do the tears thing, but you could tell I'd really gotten his attention. And he said, you've changed my life this morning. I said, well, you certainly made mine miserable from the front of the room. So what's changed? And he said, well, you kept doing that I crap. He said, just drove me crazy. Every time I tried to say something, he said, stop, Ralph, stop. I. And he said, you know what I just realized? He said, I don't know if you noticed that I've been quiet. I said, everybody in the room noticed you've been quiet, Ralph. He said, that's not me speaking. That's my dad. Oh. I said, say more about that. He said, I don't feel those things that I was saying to be true. I don't dislike gays. I've got a great gay friend. I don't dislike blacks. I work with, And he just went down the list of exceptions to his global statements that weren't his. Whose were they? Papa's. What a nice little epiphany for him. And that afternoon, you'd have thought that he'd gone mute. People couldn't believe it. Guy didn't say anything. Didn't say zip. Nothing. Yeah, why? Because he was thinking, I don't have a right to spew my dad's garbage when I don't believe it. But he's thinking, maybe some of it I do believe. So he was kind of sorting out how he felt about himself and about the world. Very powerful to own your statements. I've had a ball. This has been fun. I knew it would be. I'll be the last guy in the room if you have any more questions. Thanks so much for coming. See you later.
Just a bit of housekeeping about things.